Imagine you're just having a lunch break during work hours and then you decide to play a quick online game, probably on chess. Then all of a sudden you are paired against a chess master. That's what happened to me today. Played 2 games against a candidate master who happens to be a Scotch Gambit player, and this is what I did to them. After e4, e5, knight f3, knight c6, d4, pawn takes, and bishop c4. Instead of playing the main line with bishop b4, then put that bishop on b6, I just played pawn to d6, my new anti-Scotch Gambit weapon. From here, I went on to crush my opponent very easily, as you are going to see in a live footage. So it turns out that pawn to d6 is one antidote to the Scotch Gambit. It kind of eliminates a lot of Scotch Gambit traps that you may not even be aware of. So what I'm going to do is, first I'm going to show you the recorded stream of that game, and then after that I will take you into a deep tutorial of how to play this anti-Scotch Gambit of mine with pawn to d6. So you don't just want to watch the game and go, you should also watch the tutorial video at the end, because that's what is going to make you improve. So let's begin with the recorded stream first. Right, I'm playing against a candidate master, so let's see what they are going to do against my Mechanis. Now this has transposed back to the king's pawn game, if you think about it. So this is where I play pawn to e5, and this is now the Nm3 defense from d4. Ah, this game is full of transpositions, you guys. Look at this. Now we are in the Scotch Gambit. It's like the game started as follows: e4, e5, knight f3, knight c6, and now pawn to d4. So let me play my new weapon against the Scotch. Now we've seen the Scotch Gambit, you guys. In my e5 defense course, I recommended the move sequence, which goes as follows: starting with bishop b4 check, and then find a way to put your bishop on b6. Then play knight g e7 and castle shot. This is okay, but I want to play my new weapon against the Scotch Gambit, which is simply pawn to d6. With pawn to d6, you tend to eliminate many Scotch Gambit traps, some which you may not even be aware of. So this is one thing I like about this move, pawn to d6. Besides, I'm just playing in the Paris defense way, if you know what I'm talking about. The move that you can play here is knight f6, which is the main line, because that comes with an attack on the pawn. White needs to play knight c3. So these are rare cases where knight f6 becomes useful or acceptable due to the fact that white doesn't have a knight on f3, so they can't play knight g5 to attack our weak f7 pawn. So these are rare cases where you want to play knight f6. Otherwise, under normal circumstances, you want to play bishop e7 in the Paris defense. So that's just something to remember. So knight f6, knight c3. Now I can simply play bishop e7. By the way, if you want, you can take the knight. No harm. I'll cover this move sometime after this video or sometime later. So bishop e7, castle shot. With bishop e7, I'm just giving white one more chance to take my knight so that they can help me achieve my Paris defense pawn structure. Oh, I'm very slow today, so let me just hurry with my moves. I can now take. Enough of waiting. And once you do that, just remember to play your Paris knight maneuver. I don't want my opponent to take my dark squad bishop for free. If pawn to g3, by the way, I intend to play knight e5. This is a very simple trick that you can try on your opponents. I mean, g3, knight e5, they can't take your bishop due to knight f3 check, winning the queen. So I'm very low on time because I was doing a lot of explanations in the opening stage. This is what I'm talking about. If I wanted, I could have played bishop g5 followed by bishop e7. Wait a second, did I just blunder something here? No, I guess I can just take. Next, I want to take the h3 pawn. This is fun, you guys. Imagine I'm doing this to a candidate master. What if white just takes my dark squad bishop? I think... Oh, 16 seconds. So I'm kind of sacrificing my dark squad bishop if you think about it. If white takes, I'm just going to take back. Okay, there we see rook. Let's attack the rook. 13 seconds. Can I make it? There's a 1 second increment, you guys. That's why I'm not really worried. Let's do this. Attacking the knight. And then, okay, now I can bleeze all the moves from here. I have 4 seconds. Check. Oh no. Okay. I want I can draw. Okay, there's a simple checkmate here. If my opponent is not careful, I can also take their rook. Imagine playing with 5 seconds. Who am I? Okay, this is an easy checkmate. But of course, the main area of my meat in this video was my new anti-Scotch Gambit weapon with pawn to d6 on move number 4. I find this to be very easy and awesome to play. With this one move, pawn to d6, you kinda eliminate a lot of Scotch Gambit traps and tons of theories. You don't even have to worry about this trade. Knight takes, after knight takes, you just go knight f6 attacking the e4 pawn. They mostly defend that with knight c3, and then you go bishop e7. Yes, allowing this trade to happen so that you can form your precious Paris pawn structure on the center. Why doubling up your pawns like this? I've talked about this a lot of times. Your c6 pawn prevents white from playing knight d5 or knight b5. Besides, after something like castle short and castle short, you only need to know 2 plans from here. If white plays bishop f4, you want to relocate your knight to d7, put your bishop on f6, and then knight e5. Done. And it's up to you to choose where you want to develop your light squad bishop. Sometimes we do like this: a5 and bishop a6 to get rid of that light squad bishop, or you simply go bishop g4 inviting pawn to f3, and then you go bishop e6 to challenge white's light squad bishop on c4, and you're going to have 3 pawns on the center, kind of. Plan number 2 is where you wait for white to play pawn to f4 instead of bishop f4. Sometimes they can play pawn to f4, so f4 equals pawn to d5, sacrificing your d pawn, and there are some nasty traps that you need to master in this line. And if pawn takes, you go bishop c5 check, knight g4, and sacrifice your knight on h2, like for real. Done. This knight f6 comes with an attack on e4. They mostly defend that with knight c3. Again, if castle short, you need to use your mind. Come on, you can't just go ahead and take on e4 like that. Your knight will be pinned and it'll be taken, so don't do that. You also need to use your intelligence, your mind. After castle short, you can't just capture that pawn. You can just continue with bishop e7 and castle short, and consider playing bishop e6. Before I end this video, let me just fill the gap where I left in my anti-Scotch tutorial video. So after the opening moves of the Scotch Gambit, bishop c4, then you go d6 and knight takes. You see, sometimes if you are not really a fan of the Paris pawn structure like that, you can start with bishop d7 in this particular position, if you think about it. bishop d7 is also playable. Also, you can take. The only reason why I don't like taking is that activates the queen, right? So you are kind of going to be behind in development. So bishop d7 makes more sense to me. Point is, if knight takes, you're just going to take back with your bishop while attacking that e4 pawn. See, knight c3 doesn't do much. Again, you can just go knight c6. Never be afraid to exchange queens if that will come with tempo or a positional advantage. It is in these kinds of positions where most white players play bishop g5, pinning your knight to the queen, and here you can simply go bishop e7 and pinning your knight. If they play bishop takes, thanks to that, they are just going to help you develop your pieces out, and not to mention that you're going to remain with a bishop pair. If they play queen e2 trying to over defend their e4 pawn, once again you see that they have a possibility to go e5. Why not playing knight d7? This knight d7 move is a golden move in the Paris defense, you guys, due to the structure of your center pawns. By this time they will take, and then you take back with your queen, and they can't push this pawn. They may even castle long, by the way, after which you castle long as well. This is one thing I love about the Paris. You can actually copy what white does on the next move or when it comes to castling. Anyway, so these are some of the things that you can consider doing. If you are not a fan of the knight takes c6 stuff, you can also go bishop d7, so that if knight takes, you take back with your light squad bishop. If they don't take, say they play something like knight c3 in this position, well, again, you can just go knight f6. Bishop g5, bishop e7. Castle short, you go bishop e7. Now remember, I said if white plays bishop f4, you want to play knight d7, then followed by bishop f6 and knight e5, right? This time it's not going to work because there's a light squad bishop on d7, and this is the only reason why I don't like playing bishop d7 in the Paris defense, because I won't have my middle game knight maneuver. But anyway, you can also play knight g4, and that, yeah, it makes sense. But in this particular position, you can just put your king to safety, castle short. If they play something like rook e1, anticipating e5, this is when you can play knight e5. Or you can also play knight takes d4. But be rest assured, white is going to capture with their queen, and this kind of puts them back on the chair. But anyway, the other way you can neutralize white's position, especially in terms of challenging the light squad bishop, is by playing bishop e6. This is always a good move, by the way. If pawn to e5, I mean, this is a powerful attack. You can just take. Never be afraid to exchange your queens when you are disadvantaged. But in most cases, white is going to take your bishop, after which you take back. That will be a good trade. This is for you guys who don't like to allow your opponents, you know, to take your c6 knight like that. But as for me and my family, we love doing this, allowing white to take the knight so that we form the Paris pawn structure. After white takes back on d4, instead of playing knight f6 or bishop d7, again, you can just take if you are a risk averse, but this doesn't really help. It's playable, not just on my watch. So if you want to play like this, your key move to remember in this position is pawn to c6, not any other move. Point is, after pawn to e5, at least you can follow it up with pawn to d5 if you so wish. But there's even a better move in this position, which is queen a5 check. Point is, after bishop d2, now you take with your queen on e5. If you like exchanging queens, queen takes, pawn takes, maybe castle short, bishop f5, rook e1, f6, f4, bishop c5 check, king h1, e4, knight c3, and finally castle long. This is how you can continue playing this game. But if you don't want to exchange queens so early, you can just consider playing d5. In this position, it comes with an attack on the bishop. If bishop b3, you even play knight e7 followed by knight f5, bishop b4 check, bishop e7, and castle short. If bishop d3, once again you can go knight e7 if you want. So knight e7 carries more weight. You want to go knight f5. If castle short by white, you simply go knight f5. Bishop takes will just help you to activate your light squad bishop, which is doing nothing on c8 currently. So from here, you're just going to develop your dark squad bishop and castle short. Kind of the Caro-Kann defense if you think about it. So if anything, after pawn to d6 and knight takes d4, if you're a risk averse and you're not really a fan of the Paris defense where you double up your pawns like that, consider taking on d4, and after queen takes, try to play the Caro-Kann. If pawn to e5, you go d5 like that. If they don't play e5, by the way, and say they just castle short, knight f6 can wait. The most stable thing you can do in this position is to play bishop e6. That's one. Getting rid of the light squared bishop. 2. You can play queen f6, challenging white's queen or asking for a queen trade. Why do you want to play queen f6 in this position? Because you are behind in development and arguably your position is not really great. So the queen trade will only favor you as black. Or bishop e6, challenging that light squared bishop. Point is, after bishop takes, you can freely take back with your f pawn. And now you have a semi-open file along the f file. Next, you might want to play e5 if they do nothing about that. If they play pawn to f4, stopping e5, kind of. Now it makes sense to play moves like queen b6, exchanging queens instantly since you are slightly worse. Even knight f6 here, pawn to e5. Of course, you can take going into a queenless endgame. This is the only reason why I don't like, taking on d4 due to this continuation. I mean, even if you play c6, white can just castle short, and now you have to work for your meal. So if this happens, maybe my top recommendation apart from bishop e6 would be queen f6, which is more forcing. You just need to go into a queenless endgame. This trade after all favors black according to Stockfish. Now the pawn is under attack. If knight c3, you even consider exchanging the light squared bishops, because again this trade will only favor you as black. Then you play bishop e7 and castle short. This is what I recommend if white just castles short after you play pawn to c6. Your caro can move. If they play e5, remember you just advance your pawn. Right, let me know what you guys think in the comment section about this. By the way, you can check out my courses at www.KaspaChess.com or on my Patreon page. That's how you support this channel. By the way, I don't ask for donations or free money. So the way you support this channel is by joining one of our membership tiers on Patreon or simply buying my courses. That really helps.